Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 4 and our group member consists of Muhammad Shahruddin bin Abdul Rahim, Nur Ada Dayana binti Muhammad Nazir, Nika Rafael anak Jali, Muhammad Amirul bin Muhammad Nur, Muhammad Ikmal bin Muhammad Hussein and Nurul Nabilah binti Muhammad Isa. Our group will present on the challenge issue for government to implement minimum wages in Malaysia.
The minimum wages is the lowest amount that must be paid to employees for work done or service rendered with a given time period, regardless of whether the calculation is based on time or output. It is legal requirement that cannot be reduced by an individual or collective agreement, and it can be set to meet the workers and its family basic needs based on the economy and social. The 11th Malaysia Plan saw the revision to this minimum wages order. The first change was to raise the minimum wages in Peninsular Malaysia from 900 ringgit to 1,000 ringgit. In contrast, the minimum wages of Sabah, Sarawak and the Federal Territory of Labuan was raised from 800 to 920 ringgit. The second change in 2018 was to set the minimum wages in Malaysia uniformly at 1,100 ringgit. The amendment of this minimum wages order raised the minimum pay to 1,200 in 2020. And the fourth is in 2022, the government has authorized the nationwide implementation of a new minimum wages rate of 1,500. We can see that setting the minimum wages in Malaysia nation state carefully consideration in order to give comfort to the people in the face of large implementation. And this issue is being debated by minister and the government in order to produce the best outcome. This is due to the difficulties that the government may encounter in determining the proper minimum wages in the modern era.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Nabilah binti Muhammad Isa. My mention number is 280905, and for my part, I will explain about the factor for the government implementing minimum wages in Malaysia. In 2013, the Malaysia government introduced a minimum wage system that applied to all workers, including domestic workers. The government takes the ultimate decision on minimum wage level after considering proposal from the National Wages Consultative Council and consulting with relevant stakeholders around the country. In May 2022, the national minimum wage was raised from RM1,200 to RM1,500. The increase of minimum wage in Malaysia has been gazetted under the Minimum Wage Order 2022 on 27 April 2022. Here are some factors to consider when the Malaysia government implements minimum wages. There are three factors that will be discussed. First is social welfare and equity. Second is improving skill and productivity. And the last one is economic impact assessment. Factor number one is social welfare and equity. One of the main reasons for the government implementing minimum wages is to address economic inequality and poverty by ensuring that workers have a good standard of life. Based on this implementation, the government intends to strengthen the purchasing power of low-income employees, boost domestic consumption, and minimize economic inequality by establishing a minimum wage floor. Furthermore, minimum wage also assists in ensuring the worker get paid fairly for their work, which can contribute to the reduction of poverty and inequality. In addition, minimum wages are viewed as a government effort for protecting employees' rights and well-being, particularly in low-skilled employment. By setting a minimum wage, the government aims to offer a basic level of protection and guarantee that workers are not exploited and exposed to unfair labor practices. Next, factor number two, which is improving skill and productivity. The implementation of minimum wage can indirectly contribute to improving skill and productivity of workers. Firstly, minimum wage is an incentive for skill development. This is because the implementation will encourage employees to get more skill and education in order to become more productive and qualified for higher paying employment. When employees see the earning increasing as their ability improve, it can motivate them to invest in their own development and raise their productivity. Moreover, this implementation also may encourage employers to enhance job quality and give training opportunities for their employees. The employer also can look for methods to improve productivity and efficiency in order to justify paying higher salaries, which may lead to expenditures in training program and skill development project. Then over time, this will lead to a more trained and productive workforce. Subsequently, the investment in technology and innovation also is one of the factors for the government implementing minimum wages. This is because high cost of labor as a result of minimum wage could convince business to invest in technology and innovation to increase efficiency and production. Automation and technological adoption can replace labor-intensive jobs, freeing up employees for more skill-intensive and higher-value employment. This change has the potential to boost productivity while also providing opportunity for workers to learn new skills related to developing technology. Last but not least, for last factor is economic impact assessment. Before implementing minimum wages, government often conduct economic impact assessment to evaluate the potential consequences on business, employment, and overall economic stability. The government usually evaluate various aspects, for example, labor market condition. They will assess the general status of the labor market, including unemployment rate, inflation, productivity level, and wage distribution. Besides, they will examine the average cost of living in different regions to decide the minimum wage so it can support workers and their families. Further, business impact on companies, particularly small and medium-sized firms, which may have varying capabilities to absorb rising labor expenses. In addition, they also analyze the possible impact on employment levels, such as job losses or reduction hiring, if the minimum wage is set too high in comparison to market conditions. Next, the inflation effects are also emphasized by the government. For example, the authority will evaluate the likelihood of increasing inflation as a result of greater labor expenses, which might influence overall price level and buying power. In conclusion, every government implementation has been reviewed and analyzed based on significant issue or factor involved, so that the implementation benefits citizens and also the country.
Hi, my name is Nikarapel Anajali. I will present negative impact for government when increasing minimum wages. So, as we know, there will be several negative impact on the government implementations of the minimum wages in Malaysia. According to Cut and Kruger 1993, argued that increasing minimum wages can increase employment and better life in New Jersey, but at the same time, it can increase unemployment due to higher operation costs on its company. So this will be the same condition in Malaysia. So this will have an impact on many parties such as employee and also industry that have many employees. So basically, I have found three negative impact when government increasing minimum wage rate. First is termination of employee. Implementing the minimum wage rates might have an impact on its termination of employee, especially the company that have many workers. This is because the employers are concerned about a possible increase as a result of the increase in the minimum wage rate. Increasing the minimum wage rate will actually have an impact on labor costs, which is one of most important costs in of a company or a business. So this will have an indirect impact on the employment of its company. Unemployment will increase drastically due to higher costs in the business operations. For example, this will cause many companies to lay off their employees to maintain the margin profit for its company. Therefore, the government should act decisively to ensure that no employer take advantage of the reason for setting the minimum wage to lay off employees. Those we all know, based on the Section 43 of National Wage Consultative Council Act in bracket Act 73 to employees who do not pay the basic salary as stated in the minimum wage order can be fined not more than 10,000 per employee if convicted. So, the second negative impact on implementations of the minimum wage is that our country will face dumping of foreign workers from abroad. Why? We can find that employers cannot afford to bear the higher local labor costs as the minimum wage scheme is being implemented by the government. Hence, there will be many employers who are willing to hire and use services of foreign workers who put low labor costs as workers in their respective workplace. This will of course, enable employers not to spend more capital to do the business compared to hiring local workers who absolutely will put high costs, so that is burdens the employer. Furthermore, the employer do not have to pay leave payment to the employee, otherwise the foreign worker's salary will be deducted little by little in the following months. This makes things become easier for employers to manage organizations, but it causes foreigners to multiply in Malaysia. Last but not least, the last negative impact is encouraging the occurrence of inflation. So setting the minimum wage will help in encouraging the occurrence of inflation. This can indeed increase the purchasing power and budget rate of workers. However, it is generally well known that any increase in production costs, then market price for the goods will also increase. This will be a burden that the consumer have to bear when dealing with the higher good price. These two things have a direct relationship, so it will directly increase inflation. This is because the cost of manufacturing an item has increased due to the use of sophisticated machines. So, of course, this cost will be placed on the customer through the purchase of a product that is sold at an expensive price. This will cause everyone, especially consumer, to bear the loss. The situation is called cost push inflation that occurs when there is an increase in general price as a result of an increase in production costs resulting from an increase in firm profit, an increase in labor wage, and an increase in the cost of other factors of production, and at the same time also the increase in the goods.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to Doctor and my fellow friends. I'm Muhammad Iqmal bin Mohsin and the number metric 280131, and I'm going to continue the presentation regarding of this topic. So from this topic, I'm going to talk about the discussion under the subtopic, which is the viewpoint of the minimum wage will increase from the various aspects. The first one, which is from the productivity. The second one is from the government itself. The third one is from the association. And the last one that I'm going to talk from the economic analysis. First, we're going to talk about the productivity. The changes in the minimum wages rate also reflect a country's progress, particularly productivity oriented to the increasingly advanced technology tool. Hence, the higher pay leads to the higher employee morale, which raises productivity among those immediately affected by the increase of the wages. The success of growing the rate of the national economy would result in the parallel trend that the government can regard as a reflection of the carrying out of the reconsideration of the minimum wages rate, which have been gazetted in the Act 732. Now, the second one I'm going to talk about from the aspect of the government. The problem is one of the challenges that currently being debated among the workers, which is the employee itself. The Malaysian government is now undertaking the research for the new minimum wages rate for the 2023. The problem develops due to the employees' high cost of the living, which make the financial planning for them more difficult in order to afford the cost of the living. Dr. Sri Anwar bin Ibrahim has stated his statement that if the Malaysian experiences a trend of the continuing income growth throughout the 1 year period when the new government administration is constituted, the minimum wages problem will be re-evaluated in the near future. Now I'm going to talk from the other aspect, which is the firm associated. Based on the statement issued by the Datuk Sri Anwar bin Ibrahim, this can be interpreted as a hint that they require further studies into various of the technique and the solid financial spending strategy. Although the fact that the minimum wages rate modification was implemented the last year, which is fixed RM1,500 per month for employee in Malaysia. This is reinforced by SUPEC, which is recalled as the Kongres Kesatuan Pekerja-Pekerja di dalam Perkhidmatan Awam. According to Dato' Adnan Man, as the president of the SUPEC, who concerned with the Prime Minister of the Malaysians regarding of the futility of the minimum wage in 2023 by approving a certificate on the new minimum wages increase in Malaysia of RM1,800 in 2025. I'm going to talk about the last aspect from this topic, which is from the economic analysis. From the one of the economics who are economic analysts in the Malaysian have been expressed in the QPEX statement, which is Dr. Najib Khan. He has made a statement that the government's current minimum wages rate is not a significant factor in the ongoing rise in the price of the product on the standard of the living of the community. It is evidence that the rising cost of the living is a result of the price of the product continuing to rise, and as stated in the Article 4D of the Act 732, the government should conduct a more thorough the review and the re-evaluation of the minimum wages in addressing the issue with the minimum wages for the workers.
Through the minimum wage order in Act 732 Part 3, it has a positive impact on many parties such as employees, communities, households, and even the country. An increase in the minimum wage to Rm1,500 per month can have a positive impact on employees. This is due to the fact that higher wages can boost employees' morale and thus increase productivity. The decided minimum wage rate is also appropriate to ensure the welfare of employees, particularly those with low incomes. Furthermore, the raising of minimum wage will enable more people to find work. In other words, raising the minimum wage has the potential to reduce unemployment. When the issue of unemployment and lost job opportunities arise in Malaysia, local young people are often blamed because the job opportunities are taken by foreign employees. However, with the implementation of the minimum wage, local young people nowadays no longer choose jobs. This is evident when local employees take over jobs previously dominated by foreign employees, such as at a gas station. At the same time, the COVID-19 pandemic shows that Malaysia can no longer rely on foreign employees and must provide opportunities for local employees. Therefore, the need to raise the minimum wage is critical to ensuring that the country can reduce its reliance on foreign employees. As a result, it has been proven that implementing a minimum wage rate helps boost the hiring of local employees while also achieving the ultimate goal of the Malaysian Trade Union Congress (MTUC), which is to minimize the country's reliance on foreign employees. In the meantime, raising the minimum wage can help to increase household incomes and the contribution of employees' compensation to the gross domestic product (GDP). In addition, an increase in the minimum wage will also have a positive effect not only on employees but also on the surrounding community. Wage increase will provide a surplus of income, causing them to spend while also improving the economy of their environment. The implementation of this minimum wage affects the consumers' purchasing powers for goods and services and tend to contribute to a country's economic growth. Although consumer purchasing power for certain goods and services is a measure of a country's economic development capability, there is an opposing theory. It states that consumer purchasing power is a signal rather than a measure of economic growth. Nonetheless, the positive relationship between household spending patterns and economic growth has been widely proven, even if only as a signal. Finally, an increase in the minimum wage will have a positive impact on the country by hastening the country's economic recovery due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as helping Malaysia achieve its goals of becoming a high-income country by 2030. This is because higher wages have a net positive effect on the economy because any small loss of potential employment is more than offset by the multiplier effect, which puts more money in the hands of employees, allowing them to buy goods and services despite some inflationary effects.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Shahruddin bin Abdul Rahim. I will continue the presentation, which is negative impact of raising the minimum wages in Malaysia. While an increased minimum wages implies an improvement in the standard of living for employees, it also brings negative consequences over the long term. One major impact is the reduction in working hours and benefits for employees. Economic recession and decreased demands for product or service can lead to employers cutting back on labor costs by reducing hours for benefit. As a result, workers may experience reduced earnings despite the higher hourly wages. Additionally, businesses might decrease investment, training, and other employee-related expenses, affecting long-term career prospects. Another negative consequence is the reduction in entry-level employment opportunities. Raising the minimum wages increases labor costs for businesses, especially for small enterprises with limited profit margins. To offset these costs, businesses may reduce their workforce, hire fewer entry-level employees, or offer fewer working hours. This limits opportunities for individuals seeking entry-level positions, potentially exacerbating income inequality in the long run. Furthermore, implementing a high minimum wages can lead to business closures and relocation. Some businesses may relocate to areas with lower labor costs or more favorable minimum wage laws, while others may invest in technology and automation to reduce reliance on human labor. Small enterprises operating on thin profit margins may struggle to absorb higher labor costs, resulting in closure or relocation, causing job losses and economic dislocation.
In conclusion, the setting of the minimum wages by the government every 2 years is in line with the provision of Act 732, which stipulate the need to review the minimum wages every 2 years. This increase in the minimum wages will make the wages rate in this country competitive, thus comparable to other countries in the Southeast Asian region. After research done, we think that this implementation need to be done to ensure that there is no group of workers who are oppressed with very low and unreasonable wages rate, especially workers who have no education or lack of knowledge who work in the basic jobs. This will help them to have a better life.